Dan Willis, one of the Disclosure Project's 20 top secret witnesses that testified at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and he explains the history of how a secret government operating illegally within our national security system maintains control of the media secrecy for more than 50 years. An ex-ABC newsman, Dan has taken a keen interest in how the media has withheld disclosure of the full message. He's our guest tonight. Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for letting me be on the show.
Likewise, and thanks for coming on to share this information. 2001 now seems such a long, long time ago with this Disclosure Project. Tell me, how did you get involved in this?
It's like ancient history now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Well, I've always, because I had my military experience with taking, a secret message from the ship reporting extraterrestrial coming out of the ocean. It all keyed my interest, so I, looked over the years on the subject and heard a lot of people speaking and talking. I actually got kind of tired of listening to the whole UFO thing, and back in 2000, a friend wanted to go to a UFO conference, and I was really hesitant, reluctant. It was just the same old stuff, nothing new.
Yeah.
And I heard what Dr. Greer was going to do, and I was really inspired by his courage to do something and go to Washington with these witnesses. And there was an opening there, and I volunteered.
And there you were. Now, some of the testimony that the 20 top secret witnesses talked when you were there, what did it do? Did it shock you, some of the things that you heard? I knew you were aware of a lot of this, but not all of it at that time.
Well, I studied a lot of the witness testimonies before going to Washington, and it basically took it out of the conspiracy theory into the conspiracy fact, for myself after so many witnesses, hundreds of them, with, collaborating information and documents and testimonies that, it all connected the dots for me. So, my testimony was, insignificant compared to the other witnesses who were speaking of, nuclear missiles being shut down with the, official Office of Special Investigations documentation, the base, alien bases on the other side of the moon. That alone should be, first headline news.
Oh, absolutely. And these were heavy hitters, Dan. These were important people who have committed themselves to their jobs with the government. These people weren't just walking in off the streets.
No, they're in charge of nuclear-tipped missiles, so they're, captains in the Air Force and, people in different branches of the military and in the intelligence community, the CIA and NSA. And retrieval cases, where they're actually categorized 57 different species. All this was, disclosed, and I thought I was going to be part of a world-changing event, and the night before going to Washington, I was like tossing and turning. I couldn't imagine what was going to happen. I went there, what would happen if all this information is actually disclosed in the mainstream media and everybody became aware that the subject is really real. And, I had this dream that, they had some operative come up, and after everybody gave their testimony, they discredited everyone and said, oh, well, this is a top secret project here, and this is there, and this is all for national security, and everybody had their mouth dropped. They knew it was a lie. And, when I went to Washington afterward, they didn't need to have any operative to discredit the whole thing. The mainstream media, just essentially said that, we wanted to say that we're not alone, and we wanted to have a congressional hearing on the reality of UFOs, and how much taxpayer dollars we want to, be put into that. So none of the, pressing issues, such as things that were disclosed, was that our legal government is being denied access with proof from 2 presidential administrations, and that there's no legal oversight to these unacknowledged black rogue projects taking in, hundreds of billions of dollars, and that we have witnesses involved in targeting and shooting down the ET craft and retrieving them, and that, the ET civilizations have not shown hostility and have, just essentially shut down our nuclear weapons.
See, and I would guess that Stephen Greer and probably yourself too, Dan, very disappointed in the media exposure to what should have been at the time one heck of a public event.
I thought it was going to be I couldn't even believe I was part of this world-changing event. It was like, if it actually got out there, the information, you can imagine what a whole change to the whole paradigm on the planet would be.
Tell me about your testimony. Tell me about your role.
Mine was insignificant, I think, compared to some of the other testimonies. But essentially, I was a high-speed code operator. I had a high-level top-secret clearance, worked at the Naval Communication Station in San Francisco. And in 1969, I was on ship-to-shore communications, and a secret priority message came in from a ship off the coast of Alaska, a USNS ship going to Chief of Naval Operations, that was reporting basically the crew witnessed a brightly glowing reddish-orange elliptical object about 70 feet in diameter merging off port bow off the ship, and then shooting off into space. And the radar operator on the ship tracked it going over 7,000 miles per hour. Mine's just a small fragment of testimonies when we have, probably well over 500 witnesses, at least over 450, that have collaborating, witness testimonies that paints a picture of this operation that's been going on, since back in the, 40s and 50s.
What were you doing with the message when it came in? Or you saw it, or did you have to pass it on?
Well, I took the message in code and had to type it out. It was primitive stuff back there, in 1969.
Sure.
Communication.
Oh, geez, almost 40 years ago.
Yeah. I just have, it's one of the first thought that came, I was typing this, translating the code, and as I was typing it, I took thousands of, top secret messages and processed them. And this one just burned an image in the back of my memory. And my first thought was, take it to a Xerox machine, make a copy of this one, but I'd be in prison, for that. But I had to turn it over to the communications watch officer, and then, went on the route to the Chief of Naval Operations.
So you had this message, you passed it on. Those messages that come through, they're not hoaxes. They're the real deal, aren't they?
Well, yeah, this is official military communication.
Yeah. No, I mean, nobody fools around with that thing. Nobody would have been pulling your
not unless they have the authentication codes.
Yeah, okay. So these sailors saw something. It took off at 7,000 miles an hour, and it was gone. Was there any follow-up, or would you find out about that once you sent the message on?
Well, I looked in the San Francisco Chronicle the next day. I just thought maybe there might be other dolls to the newspapers, try to see, well, wow, this is, kind of unusual. I even, after the disclosure event, I contacted the Office of Naval Investigations and, ONI, and tried under Freedom of Information Act to get that particular message, because I had enough information, but they came back with a letter saying it's been destroyed. So unfortunately, unlike the other witnesses that had, full documentation, collaborating, their testimony, I just have my word.
You used to be an ABC newsman. Tell me about your reaction to the kind of exposure or coverage that was at the press club event that day.
Well, George, if you put on a hat of a newspaper, or television reporter, and you were assigned to go in and do a full story on this, this whole event, you wouldn't come out with just saying that we are not alone and that they're only talking about, the reality of UFOs, when, in fact, the majority of the information was basically disclosing, secret operations that are illegal.
Right.
That, have been withholding technologies that could get the world off of the energy crisis, back many years ago.